Hi, this is Jury's Doctor, and this is EVE Online Careers. Welcome to the sandbox. You've decided to play EVE Online, and you might be picking it up for the first time. And now that you're here, you've got to make a living. Why? Because spaceships are expensive. Internet spaceships are serious business. The average middle-class non-capsuleer family of 4 can afford to maybe purchase a shuttle in their lifetime if they liquidated all their assets on their deathbed. Capsuleers, those immortal pilots who are brought back from death at the moment of their destruction by cloning technology. You're essentially immortal and very, very wealthy. Look at you, moneybags. Tall dollar bills. There's different types of careers that you can have in New Eden. Industrial sector careers such as resource harvesting, transportation, and manufacture. Business professional careers in finance, market trading, capital investment. Exploration careers in data mining and space archaeology. Combat-focused careers in a corporate, military, or outlaw organization. And metagame careers. The first thing you should do when playing in EVE Online is to join a corporation. You might ask, why? Can't I just pick up the game and play it? Well, yes, you can. But I can count on one hand, not using all of my fingers, all of the people that I've met in the 4 years I've been playing this game who can play it solo and thrive. The other reason is that there's a lot you can do in EVE. This is a graphic posted by Ultra that I'll share in the comments afterwards. Ultra is another player in EVE. Also just happens to be a whiz in flowcharts. And this is a map, kind of at the granular level, all the things that you can do in EVE, rated by their difficulty and rated by their ISK requirement in terms of how much money do you need to invest in being able to do that thing. He's also done a really good job of mapping out which ones require you to be an Omega player, a subscription. You have to be able to pay to play for some of these activities. He's done a good job of mapping these out, so I'll share this in the comments after. But keep watching. So yeah, let's return to why. Yes, there's a lot that you can do. There's a lot of detail in there. But being in a corporation comes with some implicit benefits. The first of those is being mentorship, training, and support from senior players who know the game. Access to ships, skill books, and resources which you wouldn't otherwise have. The ability to gain access to those resources that will set you up for success from day one. And yes, there's a lot you can do in EVE, but some of the things aren't really practical from day one. Having a mentor who's going to say, look, you're spinning your wheels here, you're going to be in a much better place if you do X other thing by comparison, that'll help you to grow far faster than if you're trying to figure it all out on your own. You'll also gain benefit of the fittings, situational awareness, and intelligence that comes with being part of a social group that will help to prepare you for the social and political environment. EVE is a social game at its core. Ship fittings that'll help you to be an effective pilot and help you to survive against other people in combat situations. Situational awareness around what regions of safe space are presently safer for you, because truly there's no safe space in EVE, but there are areas where you're less likely to encounter enemies, and understanding who your enemies are, having intelligence about where they're presently active, who has seen them, are they presently coming to fight. That kind of information will help you to be effective and help you to understand, is there an opportunity for you to make income there, or do you need to get the hell out of Dodge? And you'll have access to safer space, where your corporation will have defenses set up, or where your alliance may have influence with the locals that'll guarantee you're less likely to run into trouble during your day-to-day business, maybe pursuing some of the careers available to you in EVE. And obviously, I'm going to make the pitch for Iron Armada. We are actively and presently recruiting for players of all skill level and experience. You could be a day one new bro, or you could be playing the game since 2003, 2004. We encourage you to come by, get to know us, join. But where do you start? Well, if you're new to the game, one of the first things that you can do to help yourself get oriented with what you can do in the game, other than the new player experience you will have picked up, is to run the starter mission. There are 5 starter mission types, including industry missions, business missions, military missions, exploration missions, and advanced military missions that will help you to get an understanding of the various regions of space you can participate in, the corporations and factions at play, and the types of things that you can do for money. These initial missions will also come with the benefit of setting you up with initial ships and income, and familiarizing yourself with different types of activities, including initial industry and hauling. These missions will also point you on to further content in the way of epic starter arcs, such as the Bloodstained Stars, a 50-mission arc that will take you through some of the history and situation that's present in the current EVE game world. And it will help you to understand how you can develop your career plan. Some of these missions you may not enjoy. There will be some factions or areas of space that you won't feel compelled to ride on the side of. Knowing what you can do is the first part of developing your career plan. But you should definitely focus on making ISK. Look at the ways in which you can benefit, you can profit from the things that you're doing. And these starter missions will start you off with enough of an income to understand what the scope of replacing a ship that's been destroyed will cost you, and how you can maximize your profits so that that hurts a little less when it happens. And I encourage you to read everything you can and learn. Ask questions. This is one of the biggest benefits of being in a corporation, is that your fellow players, your friends, and your allies can point you to resources that they have and are familiar with that are out there on the net. But I encourage you to take advantage of YouTube content creators and bloggers and web posters who play this game. Look out there. There's a lot of information available, and there's a lot of great content creators in EVE. Learn from them. So once you've started that process, then where do you go? Well, EVE's pretty big. There's a lot of space out there to cover, and a lot of places you can go. Let's start about talking some of these. Let's talk through mining. So mining comes with the benefit that, you learn that space rocks. It really does. Internet spaceships are serious business, and mining is definitely one of the most serious of businesses available. It is the first place where many players make their first significant amount of EVE, where you engage with the environment in a way that profits you in a bigger way than if you were just running simple missions for petty change. The benefits of a mining career are that it's low intensity and a decent return. You basically take your mining ship out, you target a rock, you fire your lasers on it, and you wait until it's been depleted. You run your ship back to station, drop off your ore, return to the belt, and keep mining. It takes time, but it's a good return. And it provides a predictable revenue stream. The better your mining skills get, the better the return will be. You will mine more ore. That ore will sell for more because you're selling more of it. And as your skills progress, you will mine greater and greater rarity of ores. Ores that are worth more money per meter cubed than the ores you start off mining. You can also develop very, very advantageous relationships with industrialists who need your ore to make things. So you can sell direct to market and potentially earn a profit just mining for people who are going to buy it from you because they need it, and they need it fast, and you're providing directly to their need. And all new players can do this. Every new player starts with the ability to begin mining from day one. You have the skills, and running just the first couple of mining missions will get you outfitted with a venture mining frigate right away. It doesn't take a lot to get into this. And if you're in a corporation, I'm certain that they'll gladly give you a Tech 1 mining frigate to go out and start mining with. The drawbacks of mining for ISK are few. The first is that it's repetitive. This isn't necessarily a downside for everybody. Some people find it very zen to get out and mine, kind of like raking your yard, or mopping floors in a restaurant. Some people enjoy that kind of Zen activity. I'm one of them, and I enjoyed mining when I did a lot of it. That's how I started off in this game. But mining does have a long training path. There's a lot of skills that you can train to get good at it, and there's a lot of things that you can advantage yourself of, such as combat bonuses in defense if you're in an area where you're likely to be attacked, or boosts to mining that allow you to mine more ore at a greater distance more frequently. So that longer training skill path also includes training for mining greater difficulty of ores that have a necessarily higher return and whose minerals sell for a higher price at market. And you're essentially trading your time for ISK. It's the closest thing to a day job in EVE. You're going out, you're trading your hours for a predictable return. So how do you do it? Well, you can't start off in a mining bucket like this one, because, well, there's not a lot of gravity on asteroids, and any of the rocks you put in there will just float off because no gravity and no atmosphere. So what you'll start off in is something like this, the venture mining frigate that I mentioned. Venture mining frigates are cheap, they're expendable, they're cheap to build, they're easy to fly, they're fast, they're maneuverable, and if anybody tries to warp in on you, you can just warp away because they have very robust engines and they're hard to hold down. They're designed to be able to get in, mine, and get out. And as you develop your skills and you learn how to play the game, you can skill up into more specialized mining frigates, those that are specialized for mining ice or mining rare and hard to get to ores. These ships typically have the benefit of being able to cloak. So if you're interested in mining, this presents you an immediate path for advancement that will lead you to greater ISK returns. So what do you do once you mine that ores? Well, you have to be able to haul them around. You've got to be able to move them. And hauling, also known as space trucking, because logistics means something entirely else in EVE. Hauling is about the business of being able to get around and get goods to market, to move it between locations so that you can get it to where it needs to go and to whom it needs to go, so that industrialists can process it or it can be sold on market to the people who use it. Hauling is more than moving ore, though. It's about moving goods that have already been made. It's about getting fitted ships and modules to the corporations that will use them and to the individuals that will take them out and blow them up. There's some definite benefits to hauling, such as the fact that it's relatively low risk depending upon the region and the security status of the space that you're in. If the career that you're pursuing is in high sec or high security space, it's very unlikely that you're going to experience a lot of losses of your ships. And for the relative safety that you enjoy, you can move a lot of goods and get paid for it, because really, when somebody's in a rush to get their goods to market to sell, they're willing to pay a premium to have you transport it for them, because any time they take away from their primary career is really just lowering their efficiency. It's lowering their ability to make that money. Think of it as being like a small business owner. Every minute or half hour you have to take away from the job that you're getting paid for to go and take care of errands is reducing your ability to make money. This is the reason why lawyers typically don't go pick up their own dry cleaning. They pay somebody to do it. Think of hauling as the same thing. You are a space trucker. It is your job to be the courier service, the FedEx, the UPS of the EVE world, and it pays fairly well. It's very profitable on the long run as well. As you skill up and as you train up and are able to fly larger and larger ships, you will make commensurate returns in volume. Some things, very expensive things like capital construction parts, are huge and you can't move a lot of them at a time, and they are correspondingly very expensive. So moving those things to markets where they will sell for a higher margin can make you a lot of money. People also pay very, very high rewards to people who can coordinate and arrange for rush shipments. If you have a war impending coming up on your corner, you want to make sure that you have all the ships and ammunition that you need first thing. If a hauler can get it to you quickly, you're often willing to pay for that. The disadvantages of hauling are, of course, that it's expensive to scale up. The bigger ships are, the more expensive they are, and hauling ships are certainly no exception. Hauling ships, the very largest of which are capital ships, can be very, very expensive to get into, costing well over $1 billion each. In addition to the cost of scaling into these ships, there's also the tedium that you may have to overcome in essentially flying back and forth through space over and over again to certain markets and certain regions in order to make the money that you want. Again, like mining, some people enjoy this. There's a lot of people out there who enjoy trucking for a day job. A lot of people I know who enjoy hauling in EVE have done very similar work in their real life, or have thought about doing that work, but have never really had a reason to go and change job. If this is something where you considered, I like driving, I like being out on the road, you like seeing the sights and getting to know areas that you can drive to, and if you like the quiet, hauling can be a very, very good way for you to go and make some decent money. Typically, you'll start off in a Tech 1 Industrial. Again, with the starter missions, you'll often get outfitted with one of these. This one in particular is a Iteron Mark V, or as we call it sometimes, the Space Semi, because it kind of looks like a semi-trailer truck. From Tech 1 Industrials, you can move up into Deep Space Transports, or DSTs, and also a class of ship called Blockade Runners that are able to cloak and move cloaked and get around other ships without being seen. The advantage of deep space transports is that because they are designed to move through imperiled or dangerous regions of space, they have a much more resilient hull and or shield system to prevent damage and to provide them the ability to get away unscathed. And then in the largest size there are the freighters and the jump freighters. Freighters have holds large enough to move cities or small moons. Jump freighters, by comparison, have a slightly smaller hold but have the ability to bend space and transport themselves instantaneously from one region of space to another across vast distances. Jump freighter pilots are definitely the best paid haulers in EVE, and they make the best returns. So, who are you hauling for? Well, typically you're working with industrialists or researchers, people who depend upon getting their goods to market, and everything in New Eden depends on the work of industrialists, actually. But without the work of miners and haulers, industrialists wouldn't be very effective. So everything works in service to the industrialists in terms of the industrial field, mining and hauling, because those goods, those resources that are refined, make their way into the hands of the industrialists to be refined and manufactured into new goods. The benefits of industry being that you can make all your own ships. That's your front line benefit for getting into industry. Even if you buy your ship, most ships, most weapon types use ammunition. Even with the exception of the MR, whose frequency crystals don't degrade as much, focusing and modulating energy from a laser, getting into the more rarefied types of ammunition can be very expensive for people to buy. You're talking about a commodity that's being consumed at a high volume by everybody in EVE, and making ammunition is the first place that a lot of industrialists get started because it's easy to make, there's a low investment in materials to manufacture them, and you can make a lot of money in regions where those aren't readily available in the market. Just start off with some simple ore, buy yourself a blueprint, and start manufacturing. Sell that ammunition to the market or use it for yourself. But the biggest advantage in being able to manufacture and be able to manufacture hulls, ships, modules, is that if you lose a ship in PvP, it's a lot easier to take that brunt if you know you have 25 more sitting in the hangar because you built them and they're available. And you can make ISK selling these goods to others, selling hulls, selling modules, selling ammunition, and making yourself indispensable as somebody who supports the activities of your corporation and your region. and it's extremely profitable once set up. You can make a lot of money manufacturing goods and filling holes in the market. You can definitely establish multiple streams of income, making hulls one day or several days a week, making drugs or boosters that pilots will use to enhance their capabilities in combat or in travel, making planetary goods, refining and improving the extracts from various planets and drawing in the resources, essentially space farming for the benefit of all. The disadvantages of industry are that you need seed capital to start. It's not very much. It doesn't cost a ton to get into, but you do need to have enough to get set up. With the advent of the engineering complexes, as pictured here, these costs have been much reduced. The rigs and the modules, the specialized engineering complexes present you the opportunity to cut into that negative return that you get from having to set up in advance and having to sink resources in at a game of diminishing returns. But in the process, it requires routine upkeep. Your jobs complete in real time. When you manufacture a ship, if it says it's going to take 4 hours to run, it means 4 hours of real world time. A lot of industrialists set up their manufacturing and sell cycles and their orders based on when they're active in the game. So a lot of people, especially students, will set up industry jobs to run before they go to bed at night. And when they wake up in the morning, they complete those jobs, receive them, and start new ones before they go to school. That's just one way to run. If you're lucky enough to work in an industry where you are your own boss, or you work in an office where you can multitask, there's a lot of people out there who play Eve during their day hours. Being able to manufacture your own ships is nice, but you're not always manufacturing ships or modules. Sometimes you're manufacturing the ships that haulers use to complete their work. Specialty vessels that sell for a very high return and are maybe only available in certain regions of space depending upon supply and demand. You have the ability as a manufacturer, as a researcher, as an inventor to create and improve modules, ships, and other types of goods on the market that have been produced either by yourself or by others. So what do you do with that money? Well, you can get yourself into business careers. There's a lot of different ways to get into the business of New Eden, but there's a few core groups, umbrellas if you would, in the business careers. And those are typically region traders. So once you get to know who's in the local area and what's being sold, you might know that the cost for something is very, very low where you are, perhaps because you're manufacturing it in bulk and not charging a high price. But that good might be worth 3 or 4 times as much in another region of space far away. So region traders will either haul those goods themselves to different regions of space and sell them for a higher margin, or they may pay a hauler to do that work for them, because taking the time away just isn't worth it. But they can make a big return by selling to other markets. And then there's the market traders. Market traders are the people who buy and sell within a station without moving. People who are buying, like penny stocks in the real world, volumes of items that are low cost but high volatility. Something that may be worth very little in the morning, but by afternoon when people are logging on for combat has gone up in price because supply has dwindled. Market traders rely on this volatility, and it's a kind of low-grade form of gambling in the market, if you will. It does take a fair amount of seed capital to get into, but once you have that, you can risk on the swing of the value of goods over an hour, a minute, a day, a week, or even just a couple of trips back and forth from market. And inevitably, if you're good with your money and not a massive impulse spender like me, eventually end up as a venture capitalist. You'll have enough money that you can spend and not really worry about not having money in the bank, not running out of ISK. So what do you do with it then? What do you do with those extra hundreds of millions in ISK? Well, you can invest them. Investment might take the form of providing a couple $100 million ISK to new industrialist who's just getting started setting up. Maybe somebody wants, as a small corporation, to build their own engineering complex, but they don't have the resources at hand, or they don't have the ability to support it. So maybe you help them to build that. Maybe you provide the funds to pay for the fueling of that industrial office for a trade return to you in kind that lowers your costs for operating. As a venture capitalist, you have the ability to leverage your wealth to drive the ambitions and the goals of other people playing the game. This may actually lead you into the position of being a corporate executive or a CEO. CEOs operate as the leaders of the corporations of Eve, the player corporations and their assets and interests in the game. You are the leader of your own company, your own band of brothers, if you would, to guide really the objectives of a group of people and to decide when and where you act. Corporate executives oversee budgets and expenses incurred and operations of day-to-day corporate activities, things like maintaining and fueling POS towers, setting up new facilities, making sure that players have the ability to get new ships when theirs are destroyed in fleet activities. Corporate executives have a lot on their shoulders, and these people may not play as much or as actively as other players in fleets. Some are very active, like our own CEO, Tridget. Regardless of your level of activity and your level of engagement and delegation to other people within your corporation, CEO is a big role, and it often takes being prepared to lay out some impressive amounts of funds on your own. Starting your own corporation is easy, but building a successful and active corporation with vital recruitment and HR and other people specialized in certain types of engagement with other players in the game to help people understand what their role is, to train them, to mentor them, to help them get what they need and help them get where they're going. That's a very unique role, and there's a lot of room for people to get into that kind of engagement. Above the CEO level, there's the alliance executor. Alliance executors are often dealing with the budget and the assets of entire regions, corporations that have banded together in groups and are sharing resources, intelligence, and access to space that makes them profitable. Both corporations and alliances benefit from taxes gathered on the activities of the corp members, and each corporation and alliance sets its own tax rate. These funds will fill into wallets that really, those funds go into furthering these activities. So the CEO or the alliance executor isn't paying for these things out of pocket anymore. And hopefully, if you're successful enough, the alliance and the respective corporations can get rich. Then there's the deals brokers. Deals brokers are very rare people within Eve. These are specialized individuals who have traded in the most rarefied currency in Eve, trust. Trust is hard come by in Eve because everybody operates with a natural and understandable level of paranoia that I would say crosses the border into near insanity. But that said, if you have gained trust, if you have become known as a person who can be trusted, that when you give your word, it's good, and that when you say something is a certain way, it is, and that's been verified often enough by enough people, and you've made enough friends, you can find yourself in the enviable position of being able to say, hey, you want something? I know a guy. Deals brokers, people like Kriba, are few and far between because trust is such a rare thing in this game. But when you've built it, you have the ability to make obscene amounts of liquid ISK or assets gained in profit from the deals you set up. So when the big super coalitions want to sell titans to one another, when they want to buy and sell access to regions of space, when they make agreements on non-invasion policies, those non-invasion policies, or NIPs, those are often negotiated by deals brokers. Those détentes are often set up by diplomats who are the middlemen between these large organizations and who themselves often become obscenely wealthy in the process. Then there's the market moguls. Often, market moguls are the venture capitalist market traders and deal brokers in EVE. By a simple extension of obscene wealth, these people are the Berkshire Hathaways, the Apples, the AOLs, the PepsiCos of the New Eden space. In EVE Online, these are the people who can flood the market with a simple click of a button and crash the price of a commodity across all of New Eden. These are the people who stockpile goods in such volumes that they can decide single-handedly the price of something in EVE, or can destabilize whole regions to their advantage, making it possible for them to sell their wares at grossly inflated prices, because who else are you going to deal with? They're the guy. There are some huge benefits to careers in business in New Eden. You can make yourself obscenely rich. You can work as hard or as little as you want. Wait, this is starting to sound a little bit like Amway. But don't worry, there's no pyramid schemes here. The disadvantages of the business life in New Eden are that it's the most ruthless form of PvP. And if you don't think market trading can be ruthless, if you don't think hedging business in on different regions of space can be ruthless, look at the real life parallels. When big box stores move into small towns, they can't compete. Why can't the small business compete with the big guy? Because the big guy buys in volume, and he can afford to take a loss later of $20 or $30 million on the cost of your knickknack you've been selling for $60. He can sell it for $5. Screw your profits. He doesn't care about whether or not you can pay for your kid's soccer practice. Why? Because he's big business, and he has big money to make. And he might only make $1.50 on that $5, but he's selling 500,000 of them. So at the end of the day, he still makes his money. The same is true in EVE, only times 1,000,000. So I challenge those who say that market trading isn't PvP. It can be difficult to scale and learn, partly because you have to watch out for the people who are attempting to control your profits and minimize your ability to eat into theirs. It can take a long time to learn where you can be effective and what's going to make you the greatest return, and understanding who the players are who might work against you. I can promise that once you get into market trading, you'll learn who your competition is by name. It requires patience, perception, and a high tolerance for personal risk, just like trading in the stock markets in the real world. You could see your profits multiply by factors of tens or hundreds on one good deal. Conversely, you could lose everything overnight. So, what happens if that kind of risk isn't for you? Where do you go? Well, there's exploration careers. Exploration's a great way to shake off the bounds of civilization, the civilized space of stations and clusters of worlds, and say, let's get out there and see what's in the stars. And out there are explorers and salvagers. The benefits of exploration are that it's easy to get into and skill up. Explorers go out and they hunt for sites where data has been left behind in data caches or in research stations belonging to various factions, and you're going to go in and hack that data out or data mine from those abandoned sites and see what information's been left behind of value to be sold to the market or used in research and invention. It's a low investment. You basically just need a ship and the right modules, and you can get out there and start doing it. You can start doing it today. The same is true of salvaging. You can do it now. In addition, you can do it anywhere. Salvaging, you go out in a ship fitted with salvaging lasers, and you look for the wrecks of ships that have been destroyed in space combat, or the abandoned ships left behind after a ship has been destroyed, transporting other vessels. You can go in and scoop those, scoop the loot that's been left behind, and rip apart the remains of ships for the valuable goods and circuitry that's been left in their hulls. And the nice thing about salvaging is that you can do it with friends. In fact, you're incentivized to do it with friends because salvaging is something that can take a little bit of time. The more people doing it, the faster your return. Exploration disadvantages are that you're often the target of hunters. There are people who make their living hunting people who do exploration and archaeology. Hacking and archaeology often return very, very good rewards, but it can be kind of hit and miss. And that income stream comes from the randomness of these sites. You might find a site that has turned up 100 million ISK in value, and just a few objects retrieved from a site, or a few bits of information recovered from a wreck. But that high value and that hit and miss chance of finding something of value means that you could spend half an hour working and make enough money for the entire week, or you could salvage and explore for a couple of hours and make very little. Hunters don't know what you've got most of the time, so they're going to try and kill you for what you have, and they can make a good profit doing it. In case of salvaging, you have to be selective. Salvaging, you can make good money and set up a good deal where you work with an industrialist to sell them your salvage. But for most people, it's not that simple. You have to sell at the market value. So selecting for wrecks that have the highest value return can be difficult. And salvaging takes time. Those salvaging lasers don't work very quickly, and it's very fragile, very gentle work to go through and pull out just the remaining working circuitry from a ship that's been scuttled, shot at, or blown up. So that time that you spend sending out salvaging drones or salvaging with your lasers, that's where you lose your money, because the longer something's been in space, the higher the chance that it's going to degrade beyond recovery. You have to be a ninja. You have to be able to pick your targets, get in quick, recover the highest value possible, and get out. Often these activities will take you into wormholes or pockets of dimensional space where entire systems, their suns, their planets, their moons, and stations have been pulled into another region of space, accessible only through these keyhole entries and exit. These regions of space are often dangerous, filled with dangerous intelligent AIs capable of setting up battleship fleets of their own to come out and blow you up. They jealously guard their secrets and their artifacts. And the hacking minigame that exists in-game, also used for archaeology, can be difficult to get a good handle of, and it fights back. The hacking minigame has its own defensive modules and modes that operate to stymie your efforts, and many sites, when you fail a hack or you fail to successfully access a relic site, the can or the container holding those goods will explode, potentially damaging or destroying your ship. That said, though, of exploration, it does provide an immediate return for players who learn to get into it, and I would encourage you to at least try it out. Then there's the combat careers. There are a few different types of militaristic careers in EVE, but know this: there are no good guys in EVE. Careers include player versus environment. Player versus environment is the engaging against computer-generated enemies in EVE. Those other ships belonging to drug dealers, cartels of criminals, slave-holding, monsters, factions aligned against your player's faction race of birth. You may find yourself aligned against others, such as intelligent AI drones. Regardless of where you go, there are always threats in EVE, and when you're fighting against something that is not another player, you're playing against the environment. These will include missions and incursions. Incursions are to EVE Online as raids are to World of Warcraft. They are the toughest of the computer-generated enemies, and killing them comes with commensurate rewards. Then there's ratting, also known as the activity of killing the player versus environment creatures that can be found in various anomalies, asteroid belts, and different sites. There's the mercenary or bounty hunters. Mercenaries engage in getting paid to fight other people's battles for them, just like in the real world. Only in EVE Online, it typically takes the shape of getting paid by a corporation or alliance to supplement their forces and their ability to defend their space against incursion by others. Bounty hunters take advantage of the Crime Watch system to pursue criminals and those who have kill marks against them, those who have been paid bounties to Concord to be killed or captured or collected by other pilots, whether in retribution for an attack or for the loss of a ship. You can place bounties on almost anybody, and bounty hunters profit themselves by taking out those targets. Then there are the faction warfare pilots. Faction warfare pilots benefit from the sponsorship, patronage of a faction state. The Amar Empire, the Kaldari State, the Galente Federation, the Minmatar tribe. Regardless of who you're fighting for, as part of a militaristic group, you're typically looking for whom you consider the bad guys. Those who are operating against the greater safety of New Eden. But that doesn't make you the good guy. In fact, you can do these things and be a bad guy. So what does it mean to be an outlaw in EVE? Well, typically, outlaws in EVE are those who make a profit or make a living or just have fun taking advantage of other players. When you're fighting against another player, you are, by all consideration, an outlaw. Shiny. Let's be pirates. Pirate careers are varied and a lot of fun. Well, obviously there's pirates, eye patch optional. If you were the kind of person who played Counter-Strike and your favorite map was Dust, you'll probably enjoy being a pirate. Then there's thieves. Thieves come in two flavors: thieves of opportunity and thieves of effort. Thieves of opportunity include the ninja salvager, the guy who gets out there in a specially fitted salvaging ship, maybe with a couple of buddies, and waits until somebody has finished doing their work. You're benefiting from the labor of others. It's the ratter who goes out there and clears out his site, bookmarks it so he can come back and salvage the goods. You're getting in there behind him to salvage it before he even knows you're around. You're going to scoop in, grab his loot, salvage the wrecks he's left behind, and get out before he knows you've come and gone. Can flippers work in the same way, only they're taking advantage of the efforts of miners. You're getting in and looking for those miners who are jettisoning their ore into space as their hold fills up, waiting for a hauler to come and scoop the ore. You get in, open their canisters, which, by the way, is a criminal activity, will flag you as a criminal, but you're opening those canisters and taking advantage of their attempt to defend their loot to open up a limited engagement with them and kill them. So you're more or less a hooligan. You come in, you piss them off by trying to take their stuff, and when they fight you, all bets are off. The cops are going to look the other way. They started it. You sail in and blow them up, and you take everything. You are the mugger of Eve. And then there are the thieves of exercise, the thieves of effort, the ones who go to the effort of scamming their victims. You are the confidence men. You are the guys who go in and say, hey, I'll sell you a skill injector. It's only going to cost you 500 million S. And you're thinking, hey, that's a great deal, but what you walk away with is a skill extractor, not a skill injector. And before you can realize that you've been scammed, you turn around and scammer's gone. As a rule of thumb, scamming can be a really, really, really good way to make ISK. And there's a lot of corporations that don't allow scamming. Eve University is one of them. They're not the only one, because scammers are generally considered of poor taste. It's not well looked upon as a way to make money, but it can be profitable. Just be aware that you will piss people off. If you enjoy that, all the power to you. Then there's the corp thieves. Corp thieves are the next level up from scammers. They are people who've taken the game of scamming to another level. You are scamming people based on your relationship. You ingratiate yourself to a corporation, you become well known as somebody who potentially can be trusted, who is liked and involves themselves with the corporation, or maybe you play it low. Maybe you're quiet and you don't talk much. Nobody really thinks much of you. And eventually, you gain access to things like corporate resources, corporate ships, modules, wallets. And when everybody turns their back and they think no threat of you, you grab everything and leave. You embezzle, you steal, you pillage, you take. Then there's the suicide ganker. Suicide gankers take advantage of a dynamic in Eve where, well, you're immortal. You're going to die. You may lose everything you had when you die, but you're going to return in another clone, in another body, in another situation, maybe a different station, but you're going to come back. And knowing that pain is temporary and death isn't really final, you take your ship out and you blow up somebody else's ship. You take a cheaply fit combat vessel against another larger ship that's more expensive and you blow it up, usually with friends. And out of that, you come back in your shiny new clone, in your other cheap ship, and you scoop the loot from the field and you sell it. You're essentially a suicide bomber who gets to come back again and again and again. Thank you so much for sitting through this and learning a little bit about the careers on Eve. If you enjoyed this presentation, this video, I encourage you to let other people know. Like, the video on YouTube. Share it. Distribute it on Facebook. Like it. Let people know that I'm out here producing content. Subscribe now for updates and new videos in the future. I promise. I've got more coming. And find me on Twitter. You'll find me at Jurious Doctor on Twitter. Thanks again. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I forget one? I did. The metagame. The metagame in Eve is perhaps the most interesting aspect of gameplay. The spy. So what does a spy do in Eve? I mean, most of the major stories about Eve and the empires of Eve come from the corp thieves who've gone all the way to the top. People who've climbed to the leadership positions of a corporation or an alliance only to tear it all down. But is that really the objective of the spy? Most corporations have become wise to the tactic. They've consolidated power in the hands of a single individual. Every corporation in Eve being a dictatorship, but run by one or maybe a small council of 2 or 3 people. The assets and shares so tightly controlled that there's really very little functional chance that you'll be torn down from the inside by one of your own. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, it's just a lot less likely than it used to be. But the really, really good spies play the metagame, and they go unnoticed. Think about what I've said about corporations and getting to know people. Think about what I've said about getting to know the game, being a mercenary, a manufacturer, industrialist, venture capitalist, maybe even just a basic mime. You get to know people in this game. Eventually, when you're sitting around playing the game, listening to the scuttlebutt and voice comms, you'll hear people talk about their lives. People open up. A good spy remembers everything he's told. He makes notes. He or she writes down the little details and little secrets other people overlook. You might realize in talking with somebody who is just venting, expressing their ire on the day, where does the unrest sit in a friendly corporation? Alliances shift in EVE all the time. One day's friends is the next day's enemies. If you remember, who's somebody who enjoyed talking to you? Who are your friends on the other side of the fence? And what do you know about them? Who have they got a beef with? Who's putting a chip on their shoulder over a dispute? How tenuous are the ties that bind in groups? Who are the diplomats? Who can you reach out to and share information with? A good spy can, with a word, a thought, a well-planted idea, unify whole regions of space, or put a great schism down the middle of a corporation that was just the day before considered solid as rock. The real spies in EVE, the ones that are really good at their job, they're bigger than the deal brokers because they operate behind the scenes with an impact that is always felt but may never be realized. If you're good at this game and you learn it well, you might make your money being a venture capitalist or an investor or a market trader or a swing trader or any of the other things that I've covered in this video. But just know that out there, somewhere, there's a spy who can take it all away. Thank you. I'm Jury's Doctor.